Hey guys, sorry. My last video had Google break into it while I was just recording a video on my camera. Not a YouTube live, my own camera. Go figure that one out. So, anyway, besides that, my videos have a link. If I go back and I just look at it, there's a flow, a continuation where one video brings up a point and then the next video expands on that, and then it's just kind of a continuation. It goes. A lot of times, I'm not saying every single one is linked together, but a lot of times that's the way it flows for a number of videos, like part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or continuations. This I was going to do a lot of things about the false prophet. It's not the right time yet. I'm pulling back. I did a bunch of recordings and I just didn't like the way it was coming out. It was just kind of like I was dropping so much information without building up to that information. So I'm pulled back. Now, yesterday I was speaking with someone and I was in scripture, and out of nowhere it hit me. So now you go into the bowls. The first bowl. What happens? A grievous sore falls on those who take the mark, right? It's okay. But there's a continuation of that sentence, and those who worship the image. So now, does that say that when you worship both, then you get the sore? Or is it saying those who took the mark of the beast get a sore? Or if you worship the image, you get a sore? Because then people could sit back and say, well, I took the mark, but I didn't worship the image, so luckily I don't get that sore. But what was the sore that I was trying to show with Isaiah chapter 1, verses 4 through 5, talking about their sins, their evils, their iniquities, and from head to toe there's no soundness, and they're covered in sores. Now, in the Bible, in the past, it doesn't record people walking around all covered with sores because they sinned. It was a spiritual description. Their sins were like boils and sores, and they did not bind them up. They did not wrap them up because they weren't trying to get out of them. They were trying to not work in faith or the law that was, that they thought they were under. We were working it continually. If you do not follow all the laws and break one, you're guilty of all. Very much a paraphrase right there, so excuse me. So here again, looking at that again. Well, I took the mark, yes, okay, so I took it in my hand, and look, now it's made this nasty sore. Oh, well, that's biblical. But, that would be a very easy thing to point out to everybody who takes the mark. The mark happens later on in Revelation 13 at the end. And it's got a 42-month period. So these things can happen physically, yes. But if the bowl happens in the beginning of that 42 months, well, then it's already happened and people don't know it. Which goes into the gene therapy, which goes into, sinning. That's what I think it mainly is talking about. Those who sin in this time of trials and testing. And those people have failed, and they have sinned because they have ran off into other things, adultery. They have left their first love. So now you're caught up in worshiping, you get a sore, or you take the mark, you get a sore. It's not a package deal, and then you're guilty of sin. One or the other, because the angel in Revelation 13, the third angel, describes those who take the mark, worship the image, the number or his name, number of his name, they will be guilty of God's wrath. And then it says about the saints who endure and die from henceforth. So now we're going into the second bowl. We're in the second bowl. Possibly if the Enoch calendar that was presented to us, not by many people out there, but one person, basically, and I'm not going to say the names anymore because I'm taking everything with a little bit of grain of salt from that camp. But if we're in that time, now we're seeing every living soul in the sea dies. Well, the wages of sin is death. And I want to go back to Revelation 12, and I've shown this in the past. When you look at, say, the image is icon. So in Revelation, you worship the image. It's an icon, which is a likeness of the beast. So an icon, like we look today, he's iconic. He's an iconic figure in society, in that kind of a bearing, kind of an understanding. Now, you could say, well, the people are kind of a likeness, or what is the word? They're looking up to the beast. They are an image of they are a reflection of the likeness. He rebelled, they're rebelling. That's a sin. What is happening throughout the world with all these protests that are being shown mainly on the new medias like Reuters and people like that. And Days of Noah was showing with Reuters, that guy is on the board, I believe, of the World, HO, or it was it was Pfizer, one of the two, but he's on the board, yet he runs a news organization. So they've got multi-million dollars, and he runs a news organization with that money. So that goes into a lot of these smaller base medias, because it's like you see a lot of these big news articles pop up, but they're never shown on, say, like the broadcast, superpower ones like ABC or CBS or NBC. Those guys won't touch it, and they leave everybody else to handle that kind of information. But let me get back here. So now we're seeing every living soul in the sea die. Why is that happening right around this time? I live in Massachusetts, and now I've had people come up to me saying, "Oh, well, notice that they're taking all the mask away at the end of the month." I said the other day, Canada is now going to take away all the mandates by Valentine's Day. So they've already, I feel that they have already got accomplished what they were trying to get accomplished. They said, you know what? We are going for this high number. We've reached it. Now let's move on. Now I feel that if we are going to see that flood that the dragon has poured out his mouth, chasing after the woman, looking at that verse 15 in chapter 12, there's that word, and I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'll show it here. And it's now the flood was the problem. He caused a flood to come out, and the earth swallowed it up. And you can see right at the very last sentence there is, and I stood on the shore of the sea. And then it continues on the story into the very next line, which is, then I saw a beast rise out of the sea. So it's the story continues. There's no break in the chapter that starts a whole nother vision in that. So you got to take that as one whole story. And now, is that sea the same sea, the problem that the dragon spewed out? Now that sea, every living soul in that sea died. Does that mean that they've been taken over by that problem? And with that problem, they're dead. They're cut off. If you've changed genetics, DNA, there's no going back. You can't get it out. You've got it inside of you. You've gone too far. Like I said, people have told us, you do not want this. This is a hydrogel, and once it's in you, you can't get it out, and it spreads, and I don't know if it multiplies. They didn't say that, but it spreads through you, and you can't get it out. This is something that they've been working on for years and years and years. So are they at that point now where they're ready to say, oh, you know what? No more problems. We're in the cold and flu season, for one. The Omni thing is still a highly contagious thing. Why would you say, you know what? The numbers have been down for a week. Let's just pull back on everything. And all these countries are saying, oh, you know what? It's good enough. We've gone far enough. Da-da-da-da-da. It's almost like they're preparing and they're ready to just say, oops, what just happened. And once you have this number of the world drop to a very low point, then these false prophets, I believe, will rise up. And it'll be that time for them to catch people at a weak point, when they're angry, when they're sad, they're mourning, and they're just looking for answers. But it'll be this chaos, and it could be something different. It could be that, you got the whole Russia Gate happening, China, Taiwan, Iran, and the timepiece. All these guys are, doing all these things. Now New Zealand is having all these protests. Australia. Now South America's coming into the news. So it's like all these things are coming to this point also. It's all this chaos that the Albert Pike letters were talking about, World War III, saying, you know what? We want to have all this chaos in the world, in all different levels, in all different grades, in all different, facets of society, multifaceted. So, all we can do is wait. But the way that they're just, sitting back now calmly, after all this mandate talk and all this push, and all of a sudden they're just saying, you know what? Hey, you know what? Everything seems to be okay now. Let's all just stop this nonsense. And hey, they're going to some sort of a tranquilized mode. And it's a very concerning thing to us that are looking at this from the outside, and everybody that's been on board running to and fro with this stuff. Going to the grocery store last night and walking past 75% of the people in there, all headgeared up. And, I was even I looked over at somebody, and I like to give head nods to people if I see them, like, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Hi, what's up? And somebody looked at me to see if I was looking at them, and they just had this kind of alarming look, and I didn't know if they were wondering if I was looking at them because I wasn't wearing headgear, or if they were looking at me like I was a danger because I wasn't wearing headgear. So the world is really caught up in this, and now you're going to take this all away. And what are those people that are all wrapped up in this going to sit there and do? It's like, oh, well, you can fly now. You're Superman. Jump off the cliff, and like Nemo in the Matrix. It's like, or Neo, not Nemo. Jump from this building to that building. And, it's a leap of faith. And are you willing to now take your mask off and see if you can fly? And it's like, this is so ingrained in people. But, this can go both ways. This can be, they can bring some sort of the five sneezy, and then all of a sudden say, look, all these people have caught this new contagion, and look, they're all falling out. Meanwhile, it's the five sneezy, and then all of a sudden you have this flip side of the coin where they're going to say, well, now you guys need to go, we have all these things on the books, and we're going to implement all these measures, and anybody who fights against them will then be in trouble. And if you're caught to say you're sick and you're symptoms that don't show up, well, guess what? You got to be on board. We all got to get on this thing, and things can go upside down and inside out and crazy train in an instant when the world is just looking to see what is happening. We don't have enough information, science, and all this stuff. So the world can be thrown into this confusion, which I'm seeing in Scripture. And it's why I need to get this kind of an idea out for us to be looking at, and then show the Scriptures of how the false prophets can rise out of this sea. So, and there again, that's why the false prophet is more than, it is that second beast that comes out of the earth. So we're waiting for that beast, and beast as in the beast system, and those who are involved in the system that are all working in tandem to get the world all on board in that beast that rises out of the earth. And there again, looking at Revelation 9, and Apollyon rises out of the pit. That's why we're not looking for physical things. We're looking for these falsehoods to deceive. And I made a note. False prophets coming to destroy Christians and Christianity. Everybody else is already caught up in their sins. They're not worried about those people. They're wanting to get the people that aren't on board to be on board, to have the numbers, I believe. That's what the devil wants. That's what he's always wanted. He wants to get those. He's at battle with who? God. And just as in Job, what was he trying to prove? He was trying to prove that he could make Job a sinner and make him blaspheme God. And he never did it. And the devil lost. So now it's like this another game has come about where he's wanting to sit here and bring about all this sin on the world, which is like the mark, which is like the worshiping of his image. What happens to those who worship the image? They're sinning. They get a sore. The sore is a sin, is a symbol of sin, sinners. So there again, are we looking for people to be walking around with the seal of God on their forehead? No, because we know it's a spiritual sense. So you can see how we need to stay focused in that idea. And that's what I'm trying to do with a word to the wise, is just keep these things in your mind. I'm not trying to say I'm right. I'm not trying to sway anybody. Everybody can discern whatever I'm saying. You can look up these scriptures yourself, which is why I try to show them as much as possible. You know, sometimes I'm really busy though, and I can't get all these scriptures put on screen. So I'm going to pull back here now and just say, word of the wise, God bless, guys.